We are living through a kind of renaissance in terms of entertainment. The quality of television, film, and even video games has skyrocketed in recent years, and comic books are no exception to this. However, negative stigmas surrounding the comic book industry have prevented many would-be readers from diving into the medium. We asked 6 college students why they do not regularly read comic books. Here's what they said.
I don't read comic books because they're just too complicated to get into, with all the different universes and stuff.
I don't read comic books because I think they don't offer anything to society and they're for children. I'm not all that interested in reading comic books because representation of people of color is basically non-existent. There's only like one non-white character per comic book, and they're usually a minor character.
I'm not interested in comic books because I'm not interested in superheroes, and that's all comic books really are.
I don't read comic books because they don't portray women well enough. For example, the female superheroes are always over-sexualized and the male superheroes are always portrayed as superior, which does not accurately portray the equality of men and women.
In order to address these concerns, we have gathered a list of the top 10 trends of the comic book industry today. Here are the 10 we decided on. Number 10. Stories of varying mediums converge in comic books. In recent years, mass media convergence has given way to new forms of media use such as the second screen experience associated with many popular television programs today. The second screen experience complements and enhances the experience of watching a television program. With a similar goal in mind, a new subgenre of comic book has emerged in recent years aimed at enhancing the story or overall experience presented in a different medium. Dark Horse Comics' Tomb Raider series, a sequel series to the popular 2013 video game of the same name, and the upcoming Django Zorro, a crossover series based on the popular character from Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained and Johnson McCulley's Zorro, are examples of these convergences. DC Comics has published several tie-in series such as Arrow, Season 2.5, and Beware the Batman to complement their popular television series. Perhaps the most hotly anticipated story convergence heading to store shelves is Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club 2. Not much is known about this direct sequel to Palahniuk's smash hit novel Fight Club, but fans will get their chance to rejoin the mayhem when the series debuts in May 2015. Number 9. The frequency of events or event series. While events and event series have been a staple of the comic book industry for years, publishers such as Marvel and DC have recently taken to publishing these events with increased frequency. In 2014 alone, Marvel and DC have announced a combined total of 7 universe-consuming events. While some of these events will be contained within their own series, such as Marvel's Death of Wolverine, others, such as DC's Future's End, will grow over into their own solo titles, consuming nearly every book being published at the time of the event. While many of these events have proven entertaining, comic book readers are growing increasingly agitated at the publisher's frequent utilization of them. Oftentimes, event titles cost more than the average book, and due to the universe-altering consequences of these titles, readers must choose between paying the extra money or falling behind in their understanding of the universe which their favorite books are based in. Furthermore, recent events have been poorly received. Marvel's current event, Original Sin, has been in large part critically panned. Despite this growing disapproval from the readership, publishers show no sign of slowing these money-making machines. Number 8. Reboots and relaunches. Due to the recent success of films such as James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy and Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, interest in comic books is growing at a steady rate. In order to attract new readers, publishers have taken to frequently rebooting or relaunching their titles. While the slew of new number 1 issues has succeeded in attracting a plethora of new readers, older comic book fans have grown angry with this trend. Many feel as though restarting a series from number 1 undermines the events and stories of the past 100+ issues. Fans simply feel as though their investment in these issues was pointless. Furthermore, publishers typically price these new number 1 issues at a higher price. Much as is the case with event issues, fans have little choice but to cough up the extra money if they want to continue following their favorite characters. Despite these grievances, the abundance of new number 1 issues has made the world of comic books much more accessible than ever. Number 7. The domination of previously established Marvel and DC properties. Much of Marvel and DC's financial success comes from the enduring popularity of certain marketable characters such as Spider-Man and Batman. The commercial success of these characters has led the Big Two to commit a disproportionate amount of titles to them and their immediately related supporting cast. By the end of 2014, for example, DC Comics will be regularly publishing 15 books pertaining to Batman. Marvel isn't much better. 12 of their currently published series revolve solely around the X-Men property. The dominance of these characters has led many readers to experience a sort of character fatigue. Readers can only handle so much Batman. Despite this trend, Marvel and DC have made recent efforts to highlight lesser-known characters. Number 6. The proliferation of unknown niche characters. While Batman and the Avengers still dominate much of the superhero comic book market, both Marvel and DC have made concerted efforts to reintroduce lesser-known properties. Many of DC's most popular and critically acclaimed New 52 titles revolve around lesser-known characters such as Swamp Thing and Batwoman. However, it is Marvel who has made the strongest push for niche characters. She-Hulk, Iron Fist, and Rocket Raccoon are just a few of the lesser-known characters Marvel has recently given solo titles. The publisher has recruited some of the industry's best authors and illustrators to run these series, such as Charles Soule, author of the excellent current run on She-Hulk, and Warren Ellis, who just finished a spectacular and brief run on Moon Knight. The proliferation of these niche characters has helped alleviate the character fatigue experienced by many readers, while also greatly diversifying the collection of superheroes on comic book stands today. Number 5. The reemergence of horror comic books. Horror comics have been around almost as long as the American comic book industry has, but the genre has been relatively quiet in recent years. However, in the past 2 years, horror comics have made a triumphant return. While Marvel and DC have made smaller efforts in the genre, such as DC's recently concluded series The Wake, written by fan-favorite author Scott Snyder, the reemergence of this genre is due in large part to recent efforts by publisher Image Comics. Among the best of Image's mini-horror series being released today are Joshua Williamson and Mike Henderson's Twin Peaks-inspired serial killer drama Nailbiter, and Chris Dingus and Matthew Roberts' reimagining of the Lewis and Clark expedition Manifest Destiny. Image is also the publisher of Robert Kirkman's smash hit The Walking Dead, as well as the author's new Exorcism series Outcast. The future looks bright for horror comics at Image, as Scott Snyder prepares to launch his new series Witches with the publisher on October 8th. Number 4. Social awareness. Unlike other forms of storytelling, which are often statically set in a specific time and context, the serial nature of comic book publication allows authors and artists to regularly address issues confronting our society today. In 2001, several Marvel superheroes confronted their feelings of helplessness in the wake of the terrorist attacks on 9/11. And in 2012, Daredevil dealt with the violent outrage over the acquittal of a man accused of gunning down an African-American teenager in a trial that strongly resembled the recent trial of George Zimmerman. These are just a few examples of how comic books can encapsulate and reflect the emotions and happenings of contemporary American society, and arguably in a more effective manner than other storytelling mediums such as novels or films. Number 3. Diversity. As they have begun to more critically examine and reflect contemporary society, comic books have also begun re-examining the portrayal of minorities within their pages. Many critics have accused the comic book industry of ignoring characters of color and perpetuating racial stereotypes in the past. However, publishers have recently made strong efforts to more realistically portray characters of color. Just this past February, Marvel introduced Kamala Khan as the new Miss Marvel in the widely popular pages of Miss Marvel. Kamala, an Islamic teenager, has quickly become one of Marvel's most popular characters due to her relatability to readers of all color. For the first time this fall, an African American will assume the role of Captain America, while DC continues to invest a significant amount of talent into its Batwoman series, which stars the titular openly gay heroine. These are just a few examples of the diversification of which has occurred in the modern comic book industry. Number 2. The expanding role of women. One of the most enduring criticisms of the American comic book industry is that it portrays women in an unrealistic, overly sexualized manner. While this may be true of the past, the women of contemporary comic books are a whole other story. Wonder Woman, whose physical appearance has been, let's just say, downsized, has re-emerged as one of DC's most popular characters thanks to a fantastic run by Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang. Carol Danvers, formerly known as Miss Marvel, has gone from being one of the most notoriously sexualized characters in the industry to one of the most well-written, thanks to Kelly Sue DeConnick's current run on Captain Marvel. And this fall, Thor, one of Marvel's big 3 characters, will become a woman. Other popular female-oriented titles being published today include Batwoman, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Batgirl, and Black Widow. The X-Men even have an all-female team right now. Women have never played such a substantial role in the comic book industry as they do today. Number 1. The rise of Image Comics. Perhaps the greatest change in the comic book industry today is the continued rise of Image Comics. While Marvel and DC have historically been considered the big 2 publishers of the industry, Image has emerged in recent years as a very serious competitor. Setting themselves apart from the so-called big 2, Image publishes almost no superhero-oriented titles. Instead, Image has made a name for themselves publishing dramatic, character-oriented narratives. Genres published by Image range from crime drama, such as Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' brand new series The Fade Out, to science fiction, Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples' fantastic series Saga, to whatever you consider Matt Fraction's brilliant Sex Criminals, a story about an awkward young couple who freeze time whenever they have sex. Many of the industry's finest authors and illustrators are flocking to Image. Image is preparing to publish series in the next year from the likes of Scott Snyder, Warren Ellis, Rick Remender, and many more. With the emergence of Image Comics, the Big Two has become the Big Three.